and we are up. This is episode 10 of the Our Town podcast, coming to you, and I'm not going to tire from saying this, the number one place to live in the United States of America, as announced 2 weeks ago by U.S. News and World Report. I am wearing, if you go back to episode 7 on Foul Wow Designs, I'm wearing the Alabama shirt and the Metallica themed shirt, if you will. So give him a look up Justin Fowler and Foul Wow Designs. He makes some great shirts. And I also point you to the RocketCityCast.com. Our podcast is now listed, and there's several. Carl Zealous, I want to give a shout out to Carl, and all of the podcasts in Huntsville. If you want to, as we support hyperlocal, and you want to find out the other things going on, they've created this RocketCityCast.com, and we just got added to that. So really happy about that. Enough about me and what's going on with the podcast. Matt Kroschel is here from WAAY, WAAY 31. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
You know, I mentioned this to Tori, who's at WZYP, and I thought I was saying it correctly because a lot of companies don't like it when you take an acronym and just turn it into a name like WAAY. But I guess it's copacetic. It's cool here with that, other than saying WAAY.
There's also history there. So
Is there?
WAAY used to be a radio station.
Okay.
And it was the first television news station operating here in the Tennessee Valley. So the original owner, my understanding is the person that owned the original station, picked WAAY TV, and there's a reason behind that, and I can't remember it right off the top of my head, but there is a reason for those call letters. So when they were starting to assign those to stations and radio stations across the country, the original owners got to sometimes pick. They weren't just assigned.
Sure.
So KCBS, for some reason, has a meaning for those people. I worked at KREX in Colorado, and that was Rex was the first owner's last name.
Okay.
So there's always a bit of a connection there to the community, and so that's what it is with WAAY.
That makes total sense.
And we're proud of it.
Yeah.
We were just named Station of the Year.
That's congratulations.
Yeah.
I think I did see that on your Twitter.
Yeah, well, I put it on there. I think it's been around. There's been some billboards out and about, and if you watch our newscast, you'll see in the beginning of every newscast, it says Alabama's Station of the Year, and that's actually an honor that's pretty important to us. It's been a lot of a building process.
Sure.
And so we're pretty proud of that.
You know, that makes me think about how I was wrong when I found 2 weeks ago when I found out about the news, right, that we were the number one place. Colorado Springs moves down to 2. We'll get to Colorado, your native Colorado, here in a second. Boulder goes down to 4. But I made a comment to Chad Emerson, the CEO of Downtown Huntsville, that most people probably didn't have much to do with it. But in reality, Mayor Battle correctly said in the speech that just about everybody had something to do with it, and we all are contributors, and that is the better mindset. No matter what you do, what your job is, who you work for, all of us, and WAAY 31 is an example. Your Station of the Year, that contributes to Huntsville being the best place to live. So I owe an apology. I've only lived here 6 months. I'm learning, but it's nice when you see that kind of front and center and that kind of news. So how's that been at the office? Or
I think that it's something that
additional
we
pep
know.
in the step.
We knew we were doing what we were supposed to be doing.
Right.
If you get too deep into ratings and who's watching at what time, you forget about the real purpose of what you're doing. And day in and day out, if you're going to work and you are doing your job, it feels good. But it's also really nice when your other colleagues at other stations across the state see that and tell you you're doing a good job. Even if you're an adult who's been doing it for a decade, it still feels really nice to hear and see that recognition in all of those extra hours and the hard work that goes into bringing out hours and hours of news live every day here.
So where were you on the list before you hit number one?
So it doesn't really work that way. They kind of just pick a station of the year each year, and it's based in, there's television markets, Huntsville, Birmingham, Dothan, Montgomery, Mobile. So there's, however many stations in each of those markets. And so all of those are members of the Alabama Broadcasters Association, and they pick a station of the year based on that year point in time.
Got it.
What did the judges see? What did they feel from your newscast during those awards? And so that's kind of what happened. We also, our meteorologist was named Meteorologist of the Year. And so, all of those little things, and our general manager, Mike Wright, will tell you, it feels great, but we know we are better than that.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do we do from that? And I think the city of Huntsville and Madison County, we have to look at landing at the number one spot and say, okay, we're good, we're great. Let's tell people we're great. But what else can we do to secure our? Because it doesn't feel as good when you're at number one and you become a Colorado Springs or a Boulder and you drop back down. What do you do to stay out top?
Do you see an extra level of energy from your fellow newscasters, coworkers, kind of on the day after that kind of news? Do you see a kind of a new level of commitment?
I think what's really great about television in this size television market is that you have a lot of folks that are kind of getting started in their career, maybe trying to get that experience. Then you have people like me or a Murray Waxel or a Chris Tatum, our morning anchor, who've done this for a long time and have made a choice to come back to a place like Huntsville because it's home.
Gotcha.
And this is where we want to raise our families. So we've done the Denver thing, we've done the big markets, the wherever, and we've made a choice to live here. So you have a really nice mix. And if you've done this for a really long time, media, if anybody's done anything related to media, they know it's journalism. You're not exactly the most loved person in the room all the time. I think used car salesmen are listed higher than a journalist.
Really?
So you do it because you absolutely love what you do and you care about it and you treat it more of it's a passion, and it's also something that you feel completely committed to. At this point in my life, I don't have to work in television because I'm telling you, the money is I'm great, everything's great, but you don't do this because you love the hours or you love the money. It's because you care about the community and you care about telling stories. And so when a group of people like that are just getting started or are in the room with people that have been here for a long time, and you find out collectively that the team around you, the people that it takes to pull it off, the people you don't see on TV every night or every morning, the production crew, the marketing, everybody that's involved, the sales, how important is sales to making sure that everything's running?
Absolutely.
All those people are able to look at it from their perspective of their job within that organization and say, wow, it feels really great because I know that last quarter I sold, extra ads, and that's why we were able to buy this new piece of equipment that allowed us to tell a better story. And I think that when you look at all that, it does get everyone excited. The second that you find that out, it's like that doesn't happen every day. And it's it's a big honor, especially when you're coming from a place that maybe for years and years hasn't always been the most technology advanced operation in town or the most watched.
Yeah.
But when you're able to look at those other guys and say, hey, look, we're not messing around. When we say we are going to be doing things differently now, there's the result.
Tell me about what your role right now at WAAY 31, your senior reporter. Talk a little bit first. Let's set the stage of your responsibilities now at the station. And then, we'll talk about a lot of different things, but let's start there.
Sure. So, basically, senior reporter, it's a nice thing to put on my business card, but at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller.
Okay.
When someone calls or emails or sends me a letter in the mail, I respond to that. If they have a question, my job is to find an answer. If I have a question about something I'm seeing or hearing, it's my job to get an answer for that. I don't come into things having a preconceived notion of what the answer is going to be. And that's the best part. At 9:57 every single morning, Monday through Friday, I don't 100% know what I'm going to be doing at 4 o'clock that day. I absolutely love it.
So does your day start at 10?
So we have a meeting. We have a production meeting. Everyone gathers around.
Okay.
Producers, news directors, all those type of people, our web team. And we talk about kind of what's in front of us.
Right.
Because there's so much going on. And you live in a place like this where there is literally, you could have 50 of me and still have stories that need to be looked at. And so we kind of come up with, what does that look like? What is important? What do we need to cover today with the resources we have?
Yeah.
You make those decisions, and then you get to work. My job is to let everyone else in the newsroom know this is what's going on. I focus on Huntsville, so I kind of cover the metro. So we have other reporters that cover different regions of North Alabama. I'm really tied into the community here because I am privileged that I lived here for 3 years and before I moved away, and now I moved back. I have a lot of connections. I have a lot of people, and that's my job, is to constantly be talking, texting, emailing with these people to say, what's up? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
That's what news is.
Getting more of the story.
We're not just waiting for
Right.
the local newspaper to put a story on the front page. That doesn't cut it.
Right.
So how are we driving that conversation? How are we providing a value to people that are sitting down and spending time of their day to watch a newscast? What are they getting out of it?
So at 10 o'clock in the morning, and like you said, you're going to go into a set of meetings, series of meetings. You have certain things that are prepared, done, ready to be aired, and then at the same time, maybe in parallel, things you're working on, and then ultimately, some decision has to be made on what you're going with, right, and or in what order. Or is there sometimes also a news story that comes up and becomes the new number one, and everything else gets backburnered? Like, talk to me a little bit through how you kind of triage those, or.
So I'll just speak from my perspective as the senior reporter. I do a lot more of the investigative work
out in the field.
I mean, a lot of it I'm on the phone, so I might be sitting at my desk for a few hours in the morning. Breaking news is its home. I mean, everything diverts to handling breaking news. When we have a Casey White, Vicky White inmate escape going on, it's all hands on deck, and it is literally, what are we doing to work our sources, and that's when it really matters. But day to day, I might have 5 or 6 leads that I'm working when it comes to story ideas, and I'm going to maybe pitch one of those ideas for the day and maybe have 1 or 2 other things that have come into our newsroom through a press release from the city or a Facebook comment from someone. Maybe there's a picture of an alligator or some video of an alligator in Madison that literally happened this afternoon. It was on Facebook, and it was on our newscast at 4 o'clock.
Really?
That is what we are doing, is we're responding to the things that are happening in our community, and we're also looking ahead. So what's happening tomorrow? What about that court case that happened in 1987? Why is that person getting paroled now? So maybe it's my job to have an idea, a pulse of what's happening and what's important, and why is it important? Why should people care? And that's my job. And so that's what we do every single day, is we make those hard choices of, where do we put our resources, our limited resources we have?
Sure.
How do we tell good stories that are important and impactful to people that live here?
Right. And how often are you on the air every day? On camera?
Monday through Friday. My schedule's Monday through Friday. I anchor our midday show, which is at 11 o'clock show every Friday, and then I kind of fill in throughout the week depending on what's going on with other anchor assignments. And then I usually try to use one day kind of as a research day to hopefully dig in and make some of these phone calls, and maybe I won't be on TV that day. But the reality is there's just so much news happening. It is all hands on deck, and we haven't taken a break.
Yeah.
Election night.
Sure.
I was in Montgomery. I was on television for 4 or 5 hours straight. Didn't get to bed till 1 a.m., did some stories, drove back the next morning, was on TV that next night. I mean, that is not every day, but there's just so much happening that we have got to be on our game all the time.
Is it hard to turn it off when you get home? Does it take a few hours, or
I've gotten better at
it?
I've had to. My husband was probably he told me, if you're gonna get back into television, which I actually stepped away from news for a year. I worked in a marketing agency in town and loved it. It was really exciting. I was able to be creative.
Yeah.
But once it's in your blood, it's really hard, if you really love news, to get out of news. A lot of people are doing it. A lot of people are walking away right now. It's a really challenging time. We can talk about that in a little bit. But for me, I've built in some strategies to be able to separate my time from my news time.
Gotcha.
When I'm in newsroom mode,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I try to make it that. I'm 100% sold in. You'll see me on Facebook answering individual questions and comments all day long. I'm on Twitter. You pointed that out.
Yeah.
I actually have 4: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm constantly engaging because that's how I get the best story ideas in the room.
Right.
I'm asked all the time by newer reporters when I'm out. I kind of mentor sometimes. I'm lucky to be able to do that. And I am always constantly saying, like, it's not rocket science. See what I did there?
Yeah, I like that. No pun intended.
If you're not meeting people and we tell stories about people, where people are, you're not going to know what's going on. So am I on Reddit? Absolutely. Am I looking at that every single day? Do I wake up every morning and not just look at the email on the press release that everyone else got? Am I searching through groups and Nextdoor and everywhere else to try to see what's happening? Yeah. Every single day I do that. And that keeps me engaged. It keeps me, even if I'm on vacation, I know what's happening in Huntsville. Yeah. That's my job.
Well, yeah, and like most industries are going to evolve and change, right? And journalism is no different. And here we are in this world now where you're, unlike in the past where we went to the news or to the radio for primarily all of our news. Right now it's so spread out, but yet you need those people who are going to run down the story and give you the truth. And to me, local news, that's always been a hallmark, right, of local news is you're going to get honest reporting. You feel that way?
I think that it will never go away. I've had even my parents have said, you should get out of TV. the rats are all trying to get off the sinking ship. Look what happened to newspapers. And I always go back with, if you can tell a good story and you have a reputation of being honest, trustworthy, and you're able to do that day in and day out, and you care about the people you're actually talking about and with, there's always going to be a job there. Always. I don't care automation. They can have electric cameras and do whatever they want, but you still need a person that can sit here and look somebody in the eye and hear what they have to say, and then take all of that, whatever that might be, heart emotion, anger, whatever that is, and make it into something that someone else can understand and relate to.
All right, so you mentioned your parents, so let's do this. Let's go back now to Colorado.
Oh, it's snowing in Denver right now.
Is it really?
I just saw some of my friends are out covering snow, and I do not miss it. One day, I do not miss it.
So look over there, Poncha Springs.
Yep.
This is the, just to give you a relation, actually, I think you're kind of, I have your picture-in-picture kind of hiding where Denver is, but there's Colorado Springs. So you're southwest of there.
They call it the heart of the Rockies because if you look at a map of Colorado, basically the bullseye in the middle is the Arkansas River Valley, where I grew up.
And the crossroads of the Rockies too, right? They kind of refer to it that way.
So Highway 50, which runs across the whole country, and Highway 285, they meet in about 4 blocks from where the house is that I was raised in. My dad built, and they still live there today.
You know, it's funny you mentioned 50. It goes out to Ocean City, Maryland, and there's a sign that says, I can't remember the mile. It's like 3,200 miles to Sacramento or wherever it ends. I can't remember which California city. And you're looking at, and it's a funny sign, right? Because you're never going to see anything with like that many miles. But you can drive the whole thing if you want to.
You can. It's a beautiful road through Colorado. It's one of my favorite drives over Monarch Pass, it's called, and drops down into a place called Montrose, eventually through western Colorado. And it is a gorgeous drive. It's a beautiful place. I was very, very lucky to grow up there and have a lot of great friends, and obviously my parents are still there.
It's a small town. 1,000 people? Is that?
Poncha Springs, when I was raised, it was about 400, but I believe they've been booming, and they're over 1,000 now. My dad was the mayor pro tem, so I remember going to council meetings when I was a little kid. I would go on Tuesday nights to the little town hall there in Poncha Springs and listen in. And my big claim to fame was I even as a kid, I had an eye for these things. I demanded that the council put some money and figure it out to redo the Welcome to Poncha Springs signs because they were old wooden ones that just didn't really cut it. And I had that marketing eye even as a little kid growing up in Poncha, and I made a whole presentation, and I believe 3
How
or 4,
old were you?
I was probably 8, I think 8, yeah. And made the whole presentation. I had some sketches of what I thought they should look like. Went home to visit. Last time I was home visiting, they've installed new signs, Welcome to Poncha Springs, big rocks. They had somebody actually put a big rock up with the chiseled Poncha Springs emblem on it.
So how many years did that take them to do?
Maybe around 20, 25. But there's new signs, so I'm happy.
So this is part of the reason I like to do long form podcasting, right? You're certainly a person where if you do some research, we're going to stumble upon some stories. I'm going to come across some interviews that you did, and they're going to mention a few bullet points, right, of your life, which really doesn't do you any justice to kind of stories like that. And that's why I think where I enjoy doing a podcast like this in long form for people who see you. They're only going to see what was written, right, in some online article. It mentions in an interview you did that you may have first discovered your interest in being a television reporter when you were 7. But it also said you weren't exactly sure what made you think that, other than it was at that age. Since that interview, have you had any other kind of additional revelation on that, or was there a specific instance, or can it just take us back to when you're 7, and what were those circumstances that led to, hey, I think I'm interested in this?
I do not know why, but for some reason, I was the kid that knew all of the TV people's names, where they were from, what station they were at. I would sit and watch the news with my grandma, Nancy, because she watched the news religiously. Like, that was our thing. We'd watch the 4, the 5, the 6, whatever it was. And it was a small town, so the Denver news wasn't always coming to town. But if they did, it was usually a really bad thing, like bear attack or a wildfire or something like that. My mom, I would call her. I'd have work or whatever it was growing up. I would say, Mom, you've got to take me over to the courthouse or to the fire scene. And I would just show up and be like, here I am, the annoying little kid that just loved it. I loved the technology. I loved the storytelling and the presentation and the theatrics of the whole thing. I liked just the journalism part of it. I liked to be able to just talk to people, and I could see that was something that I think I would like. I just kind of translated that, coming from limited resources in a small town where we didn't have TV stations. I didn't have anywhere to have experience doing that. I did everything I possibly could. I did internships. Even as a high schooler, I worked in my little local newspaper as an intern, and they hired me on part-time during high school to be a photographer and be a reporter. I worked, I volunteered, had a little show at our community radio station, KHAN 106.9 FM, sunny side up, Sunday mornings. After church, I would head right over to the studios downtown, and I would have an hour show.
Did you get to name the show?
I did. That was my name.
Sunny Side Up.
Well, we were K-Hen, so
Okay.
I came up with the egg thing. You know, our mascot was a chicken. But I just tried to do everything I possibly could to get some sort of level of experience, and I was really, really blessed to be awarded a full ride scholarship through a bank in Colorado that doesn't exist anymore. Their board of directors, it was a small local to Colorado bank that said, hey, we want to just find a community leader type kid, Colorado kid, and we want to pay for their college. And when I say full ride, I mean books, everything. And included in that was, I had a mentor who was the bank president, and I went to school in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado Mesa University now. It was called Mesa State College. So the only stipulation was I had to go to a state school in Colorado. And so I picked Colorado Mesa. They had a journalism program, and I really liked Grand Junction. It was just far enough away that my mom and dad wouldn't come over and bother me. It was 3.5 hours, Highway 50.
Yeah.
And so I went there, full ride, but they had a mentor that was the bank president from the Grand Junction branch who would literally take me. They had a budget all figured out, take me to a Rockies game. Once a month we'd go and just kind of like talk about how college was going. And then built into the program was mentoring other. I was able to come up with my own community service programming. So while I was in school, I was able to go into high schools, and I did a leadership type programming with high schoolers, and I just filled my time and my requirements for the scholarship by starting my own program that actually still exists today.
Really?
In the school district there. I believe it's not anyone from my scholarship now, but because it doesn't exist anymore. The bank went under in 2008 when everything went crazy. They were bought out and it went away.
But luckily after you graduated.
No, this was a stipulation as part of the new people that bought the bank. They had to keep paying for my school until I graduated in 2012 or 2011. Thankfully, that all worked out. So I was really, really blessed. I came from a great place. If you've ever been to Colorado.
I have. I've been to Grand Junction.
Great community.
Yeah.
Biking is out there. It's a little warmer, so that kind of prepared me maybe for living in the South without the humidity.
Yeah.
And I just know, growing up, people always ask, why would you ever move to Alabama? why would you move back to Alabama after you got out?
Right.
And I always just tell them, I say, until you visit it, don't even listen to anything that anyone else has ever told you about it. Just visit. Then you'll likely want to come back.
Yeah.
You'll understand.
Right.
But the second part to that is, I was never that Colorado kid that you see, Colorado native. They are loving the snowboarding and they love winter and let's do this. And I just wasn't that guy. And I was the mountain reporter for the CBS TV station for 5 years, where I covered the ski industry, and I would ski every single day, and I would pass to every single mountain in the state. And it was okay, and I can ski.
It was part of the job.
It was part of my job. I didn't do it for fun. And so the hardships of living in a place like Colorado, all the other things that are involved with that, the weather, driving in that for 9 months of the year, not being able to grow gardens, all those things, at some point...
You got to have four-wheel drive.
We just looked at it, we looked at each other and we're like, you know what? Life was really good back in Alabama. Yeah. So we just made the choice, and we got lucky. We bought our house here before everything went really, really crazy. Yeah. And just kind of sat on it and had a rental, and were able to make it work. So...
Man, there's so many things I could tell. I am a snowboarder, and I will tell people between Utah and Colorado's the best, because most of the resorts are right off I-70. It's easy to get to. In Utah, you got to go up in the canyons. But I'll just tell you, I have a friend, so I'm from Virginia. He moves out to Colorado. He lived in, not Golden. He lived in Evergreen. Mm-hmm. Okay, so not too far from like A Basin and the Eisenhower Tunnel,
Loveland,
and all that stuff.
Loveland
Pass. It's even closer, right? But so he moves out there and becomes like a snob. In the East Coast, you're used to man-made snow. I would go up to Pennsylvania or ice. But you learn how to be a really good snowboarder because you're on ice, right? So you get out into the powder and soft snow, it's nothing. But I go out to visit him, and I'm like, and we're gonna go snowboarding like every day. And like, so where are we going? He's like, I don't know. We'll find out in the morning. We'll find out who has the most powder. I was like, well, I want to go to Copper. I want to go to Breckenridge. He's like, nope. I want to go to Beaver Creek. Nope. We will go where whoever got the most powder. And so we went to Keystone 3 days in a row, and then we went to Beaver Creek one day. But that's the way, when you roll with the local who is like, I am not going to snowboard in anything but powder, that's what your friend will just be like, I don't care if you have a checklist of all the mountains you want to go to. If you're going to snowboard with me, we're going where the most powder is.
Bingo.
It's Keystone, for whatever reason, got dumped on.
There's people that live in Summit. So I lived in Summit County.
Yeah.
So I was based out of Summit County. After college, we can talk about coming here the first time, but
sure.
Colorado, out of college, moved back to Colorado for 5 years, worked for CBS News there, and I was the mountain reporter. So the photographer that is up in the mountain, I actually lived in Summit County. So our little satellite office was based in Frisco. And our photographer, John Mason, who has been up there for 30 plus years, super like outdoor, but he is a local, right? His kids were raised in the Summit County School District, and it's very rare actually, because it's such a hard place to live. It's expensive. It's very challenging because the turnover every season, everyone shows up, thinks that they're going to have this great life, and realizes that unless you have the resources to do it, it's not an easy place to live. There's very, very wealthy people, and then there's people that are just living 12 to a condo on the couch, just trying to like work as lifties and live the outdoor life. But John, he was the photographer, so he was always funny. I would say, "Oh, we're gonna go get some turns in this morning. We got 6 inches." I don't leave the house unless we got 10. I mean, that's the thing you're talking about. It's very much so blessed. Also, chip on your shoulder because you've survived it.
Give me an idea before we progress too much further. Did you have any other like part-time jobs in Poncha Springs?
I did. I worked at Grimo's Italian restaurant as a busboy.
Okay.
I worked at a couple other restaurants in Salida, which is only 5 minutes away.
And that's where your high school was, like
Salida High School was there. Right. I went through school in Salida with some of this, basically the same 70 people that I graduated high school with. I'd say 3 out of 4 of us started kindergarten or even pre-K together. Even Sunnyside, Sunshine Inn, daycare. Some of those same kids were at my graduation party. So it's a small town, like it really is, and we all kind of were in it together. And I'm still friends, obviously, with a lot of them. And
let me ask you this: I just saw this tweet before you showed up from Tony Mack from the Ump, right? And shout out to Tony Mack. He's the PA guy at the Trash Pandas game as well.
Yeah.
But the question was, and he retweeted it. It was, "Who are you? The most famous person from your high school?" So is Matt Kroschel the most famous person that has come from Salida High School?
I don't know about that. I don't know, but I do know that our arch rivals in Buena Vista, the Demons, Mason. So actually, I'd say Mason Finley is an Olympic athlete.
Oh wow!
If you look him up, he is a disc thrower, and he was actually at the Olympics this last time. He didn't medal, but he's from Salida. We were in the same. He was 3 or 4 years younger than me, my sister's grade. He's about 7 foot tall.
Wow,
350 pounds, just a massive kid. We played basketball together.
And they train in Colorado Springs, right?
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
A lot of them do.
Yeah,
he grew up there, so he already had that in his lungs.
Yeah,
so he didn't have to deal with that type of training. So he's very famous. He's from Salida.
Well, and let's remind people that Salida is or Poncha Springs is like 7,000 feet up, right?
Right.
Your elevation, that's way up there. You're talking about the Mile High Stadium, you got another 2,000 feet to that.
And then my last house in Summit County by Kremling, Summit County was 9,000.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You get lightheaded when you kind of descend, and it take a while to kind of acclimate to that.
I never noticed it
never
until I
noticed
went
it?
back to visit after being here for 2 years. So we went back, and I got like kind of altitude sickness, and I'd only been gone for a year and a half. It's just your body immediately adjusts to that.
I went one time and landed in Denver, went straight to Copper Mountain, which is pretty high up, right? I think it's about 12 or 13,000 feet, and almost passed out at the top until you start to just descend a little bit, right? And the air is so much thinner.
And drink some water.
Drink some water.
You can always see the folks that are not from there. They're sucking on those oxygen bottle things that you can get at the gas stations.
So now talk me through the progression. So you wanted to get into news. You get your first job, and then you come to Alabama. Things are progressing the way you want them to progress, and it's just kind of chasing the new opportunity. And then you go back to Colorado, and then you come back to Alabama.
So just to fill in the pieces, so while I was in Grand Junction finishing up college, I had an opportunity of working in the Market 187, Grand Junction, Colorado, KREX, Channel 5. So they actually gave me a job as a photographer, which turned into an on-air position before I was a senior in college. So I was able to take these classes and learn theory about broadcast journalism while I was I have to actually leave early because I have to be on the news tonight, which was awesome.
Yeah,
so I got all this real world experience. And so when I graduated, within a month or so, I had the job offer here in Huntsville, and I'd never been to Alabama. I knew 0 people except for the news director that was recruiting me.
Sure.
So I flew in, came for the weekend, kind of got my wits about me, and was like, wow, this is way different than I ever thought Alabama would be. And so I accepted the job. I was at another TV station in town, and I moved here, and I actually worked there. I was a nightside reporter for 3 years. I had a 2-year contract, and I signed another 4-year. I was going to stay, and I had an out in my contract, which in television is kind of an important thing because it's all contracts. So what you see is what I'm selling. So I'm selling Matt Kroschel.
Is it annual?
Everyone has different deals.
Got it.
I'm under a long-term contract with Channel 31, which is great, job security, but also it's all part of the business. So I was under contract, but I had an out in my contract just for Denver, just on the off chance there was a job, because that was always the dream, to work in Denver, the stations I watched growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
Didn't really think anything of it. And then I got the call from a news director in Denver that's like, hey, I've been following your career. I have this mountain reporter position opening up, and I think you'd be perfect. Boom. 3 weeks later, we were moving to Colorado.
Wow.
So I had that job for 5 years, and I basically, I was like, hey, they want to re-sign me for a lot longer. It's my communities. I was literally covering the small towns that I grew up with and played basketball against. So I knew everyone. It was really, really cool. Every little town I'd go to every day, I would go, and I covered from Durango to Walden, which is basically the New Mexico border, all the way up to the Wyoming border, all the way to the Utah border, Grand Junction, and basically anything that wasn't Metro Denver or Grand Junction, or Colorado Springs, because there's a TV market there. Everywhere else was kind of my territory. So we were in the suburban, hitting the road, telling stories every day, living that road life. And I loved it because I would pull
Yeah.
into town and I had friends everywhere we went. I'd know somebody at least. And the social media part was great. I grew such a great group of people that I really cared about. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so proud of whoever in Craig, and this happened, and whatever, even if it wasn't on the news that night. I was kind of part of the communities, even though I just lived in Summit County. Anyways, that was all going great. Absolutely hated dealing with snow. We had a 1/4 mile driveway. I spent more money in paying people with big machinery to let us get out of our driveway than I did on propane.
Before you move on, did you ever have any dangerous situations? I know that, I'm sure that your work was, you were, covering the big snowstorms, snow drifts, obviously the travel. Was your life ever in danger?
I was in a 14-car pileup in a news car.
Really?
At the tunnel.
Which side of the tunnel, east or west?
It was the east side of the tunnel. So I'd just come out of the tunnel, coming up from Summit, heading down to Denver to pick up some gear. Came out of the tunnel, 14-car pileup. Everyone was okay, but it was messed up. It was closed for a whole day.
Okay.
Took them a long time. It was a blizzard on one side, nothing on the other.
Yeah.
I've been in the line of fire from, and this was actually in Grand Junction. Sunday morning, I was hungover. I was in college, so I was like covering the morning shift. And here on the scanner in the newsroom, I'm all by myself covering the weekend morning show. And I hear on the scanner that there's a guy that with a sawed-off shotgun who just robbed the gas station in Clifton, which is outside of Grand Junction. And so I hop in a car and head that way. And I just randomly pull into this neighborhood behind the gas station because I saw there were some police officers down that way. So I hop out. I park in a random driveway. I have the car still running, the news car, Channel 5. Back is open. I hop out and I'm getting video facing the street of these two officers that are like walking down the street with their little helmets on and everything. And little did I know, or did they know, the dude had taken hostages in the house where I had parked my news car just randomly. And he was shooting out of the front windows at them, and I was in between them. So I hit the ground, they hit the ground. My news car was parked there it ran out of gas for like 6 hours during the standoff, and I was obviously kicked out, and I was okay. That was kind of dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, that'll get your adrenaline going.
I've been on some hikes with all of our gear
Yeah.
I'd had some rocks come down. I don't think that really the danger driving in the car every day is dangerous.
Sure. Understand.
Been in some helicopters. Come to find out, those helicopters didn't have the right fuel safe. If they did crash, there's been stories done on that. So, I mean, yeah, there's danger with it, but I've also had so many amazing opportunities and things that are just not in the normal.
Yeah.
You don't usually talk to someone that has been able to like dabble in something completely new at their job every single day for 12 years. It's been a blast.
I'll tell you, it's been awesome. Just in 10 episodes, every guest is someone who's loved their job, and it just shows, right? Not one person I've kind of interviewed and thought, man, they don't like their job.
There's days where I don't like my job.
Sure. Yeah.
There's days when it's 92 degrees and I'm standing out here in the humidity like, okay,
Sweating.
here we are. But no, it's fun.
Yeah. All right. So then now we're at that point in the story. Now we're going back to Alabama, right?
Right. So so my husband is his family, his sisters, parents. His dad was military, was stationed at Redstone, so they ended up staying here, military brat. So that's where we met, is here. Okay. And then I was like, oh, by the way, everything's going great. I have to move back to Colorado for this dream job. Want to move to Colorado? So we did.
Got it. And he's from Tennessee?
And his last stop was Tennessee, yeah. So they kind of had a little farm, and his dad is now working in government contracting here.
Got it.
So they were kind of established and finished up school and moved with me. We ended up getting married on our property in Colorado, and then
congrats.
Thank you. We talked about like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
we'd like to be closer to our nieces. His sisters both have kids, so we thought about it a lot. And I basically told him, I'm like, hey, you made the choice to move to Colorado for me. So like, when my next contract comes up, I'm totally cool with whatever you want to do. We're going to be great. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Didn't know about pandemic. Making the move in March of 2020, driving across the country with a U-Haul, 3 dogs, 3 cats.
What was it before the 16th of March? It was like the first days of that March month? Oh, that's literally before the pandemic, yeah.
No, it was like when the shutdown happened. So I think our house
March.
sold like the week of shutdown.
Oh,
wow. It was
wow.
all remote. Everybody's been through some things.
Yeah, sure.
So we moved. Nothing was open. Found a couple little hotels, thank the Lord, in Kansas because it was rough. But we got here, and both of our jobs they kind of were put on hold because of everything. There was so much uncertainty. And so we moved here. sold our house, had a house here, had $50,000 worth of improvements to do to the house that we knew we had to do. And so we both were like, you know what? Let's just not work for a few months and figure it out.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen. So it all worked out.
That's
the house
awesome.
is back. We actually run a bed and breakfast. So it's all just worked out. I'm being a little scatterbrained because it's been a long day on the news, but
Sure.
I don't necessarily. I sometimes it's just I don't believe that this has all happened the way it is, because it was the idea of moving back here and being part of the community again, because we've always kind of felt like, wow, why did we leave? I know why. I had to. If I wouldn't have taken that job, I would have never forgiven myself for not taking that opportunity. But once I did it and it was checked off the list, it was kind of like, yeah, it's a great salary and we get to live in Colorado, but life is really good. Let's move back. Let's have a new adventure. So here we are, and it's been almost 2 years, and I know
exactly the way you feel, man. I like a lot of times, usually when I'm getting the mail and I'm like walking up the driveway and I'll look at the cars and they have Alabama plates, I'm like, I live in Alabama. Man, this is awesome. And I kind of like pinch myself every day just at how everything lined up for us very quickly. And the next thing you know, before you even had a chance to really process it, boom, it was done. And like, we live in Alabama. We live in Huntsville, Alabama. And you know, it's wonderful, but kind of like you were saying before, if you don't have family that are from the area, it just so happens my sister and my mom are now in Atlanta, 4 hours, but we were all up in Virginia or everywhere else in the U.S. for years. And all of a sudden now we're kind of in like the Southeast.
Well,
which is cool.
We keep joking with my parents because every time they're complaining about the weather, whenever they come out and visit us and they're hanging out at the pool, we're like, life is really good. You could make a killing selling your house that they built in 92 in Salida for $100,000 or whatever. You could make a lot of money and retire and live really, really well here in the South, and they like it here. So we're trying to convince and kind of relocate our family down here.
That's awesome.
So we'll see. We'll keep working on that.
So the bed and breakfast through Airbnb,
yeah,
that was something new as far as, okay, you're not working, you've got to restore the house. That's where you live. You live in kind of one of the apartments, if you will, off of that bed and breakfast.
Yeah,
and then you rent out the other units.
So really, the real vision or the dream when we moved back here is that we weren't sure what we were going to do for work, but we kind of had this idea. We've always had this idea of having a small farm where we're able to do a larger scale bed and breakfast and both quit our jobs and raise the food and have like an event venue and all those things. We couldn't find the right property that we were looking for, but this house came along and we both fell in love with it. We literally bought the house sight unseen, FaceTime walkthrough, and flew in and closed. So then we were like, okay, we have way too big of a house just for two of us. So what are we going to do now? How do we make this work? And we still want a taste of, do we really want to run a bed and breakfast? So how do we do like one room just to kind of test it out?
Yeah.
And so the Red Door Retreat was born, and it's just, ever since we started it, it's just been really, really great. It's fun for us because we really like to tell the story of why we live here and share that kind of insight with people. So through Airbnb, we get people all the time. I mean, we literally just spent 2 hours talking to a couple from the Netherlands that were driving through the South just to visit music venues. And they randomly ended up in Huntsville, and they ended up at our house, and we sat up for 2 hours just talking about life. And it was just so cool. And they were paying us money to live in our house.
And it just so happened they just built the Orion.
And they literally were able to go visit that, and it all worked out. So
wow,
you don't realize that level of just the stuff that comes your way just because you're there and you're there. So we make breakfast for folks.
It has a pool too, right?
And we have a pool, and we're able to kind of share some spaces. We don't share our kitchen.
Right.
It's you kind of like do it how you want to do it, and it works great. People that love dogs love to stay with us. People that don't like pets probably wouldn't want to stay with us. We have a bird now named Frank, and a cat named Gree. So it's a pretty busy house. People coming and going all the time, but I love it.
And you have chickens.
We don't have them anymore.
Oh no. Okay.
So we have them up at the farm. So the family,
Ah.
70-acre farm up by Pulaski,
Yeah.
Chris's parents, and they have cattle and sheep and the whole deal, and they have chickens, so we have farm fresh eggs. But we had chickens and ducks back in Colorado.
Got it. I was going to ask if you're using the eggs and feeding the guests with the eggs and stuff. But.
Well, we tried to as much as possible. We try to actually we've been able to partner with a lot of different artists and people like that. So Chris's mom makes goat milk soaps. So we have her soaps in the Airbnb, and we have other artists featured in the house. And I have my art studio there. I do art as well. So people are able to kind of like come into the house and really like immediately when they first arrive in town, before they even go to the Space and Rocket Center or they go downtown, they're able to like get a taste of the community. And that's what we're really trying to build, is that connection just organically, because that's what we like when we travel somewhere new. And
you're the storyteller, so you can tell them a lot of stories too of things that have happened.
And it worked really well because Chris was doing some real estate too when we first moved here, and so he had leads all the time because there were so many people just come in for the weekend to be like, "Do we want to move here?
Yeah,
there's a job opportunity. Oh, we don't have a realtor. Well, here's our Airbnb host," and that was great. He's now a teacher, so he's not doing the real estate as much, but it's just been a wonderful thing. And we don't necessarily need to keep doing the Airbnb, but I like it. It's like a fun thing.
Good escape.
I kind of like it. So
I've never lived, as an adult, I've never lived this close to an airport. And I've been kicking around the idea of, is it Toro? Is like kind of like that rental car thing where you use your car, right? And I was like, well, we're only like 5 or 6 miles away. And why not? I might do it. We have typically we have a car an extra car where we can just kind of organize our schedules, and maybe we rent it out for a few days and see what happens. But people, I'm assuming at bed and breakfast, people are probably a lot more respectful towards your property than like a rental car. 'Cause I just hear horror stories on how people treat things that they rent.
Yeah. Airbnb, I mean, I can't speak for all the platforms, but I do know through Airbnb, it's almost like Uber as far as I get to review the guests, and I get to read their past reviews from other hosts, and they get to review me, and they get to read the past reviews that other people have left. So those people kind of weed themselves out. If you're not a very good host, and you don't clean the room, or you don't do what you say you're going to do, the room isn't what it is on the pictures, you're not going to be on Airbnb very long. And you're not going to be a guest staying at places either if you don't respect them. And so it's been really nice to...
I would think, I would suggest that people that you would have a problem with are not going to stay in an Airbnb, right? They're going to stay at other motels or hotels that are
they're staying. We've had a couple interesting situations where it's like not really what we expected, but everything's been fine.
Yeah. So. Hey, let's talk about the art, acrylic painting, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna bring up something. Let's go back to the internet.
I keep forgetting that we're on the camera too.
Yeah, isn't that great? That's kind of
This has been fun. This is actually my first podcast. I've never done a podcast. I've done the radio thing, but this is actually really cool to be more of a long form, just talk. And I don't even listen to podcasts. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna start. I started listening to yours just so I understood what it was, because I was like, "What is a pod?" Like I watched not Murders in the Building or whatever that show was called. So that was kind of like, is that really what podcasting is? It's just people talking about whatever. It's cool.
It's interesting because the term podcast was just back when it was audio only. Most of them are audio only, and you just uploaded it to your iTunes and you listened to it on your iPod. And I think that's where the term, So to me, this is more of a show.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's cameras, there's lights, there's all kinds of things we could do. I mean, I would love to. At some point, I might go live. I'd like to treat it more like a radio show where people call in and you interact. I don't do well with, I don't think I would do well as a single, no guests, right? Just me talking, because it's not that I'm not interested in things, but I have a hard time. It's like, I'm a mile wide and an inch deep on things. I'd rather just talk to people.
Right.
And versus just kind of hyper focused on one subject matter. And that's where I would struggle. Other people are fantastic at that, right? I applaud the those guys know Alabama football, Auburn football, everything in the SEC, and they talk football kind of every day, right? And that's a different level of talent to follow that. And so
that's one thing everybody says, "Oh, you moved here, Alabama, Auburn." I'm like, I watch football. I played it in high school, but I'm not a huge sports guy, so sometimes I have no idea. I'm like, they're "Oh, who's your favorite?" Blah blah blah. Join my fantasy league. I really have no interest, but that's okay.
All right, let's switch over and let me pull up your thing here. And
oh gosh, look at that full beard.
I've got
Colorado winter
screen. There we go. Matt Kroschel to present art at Paquette Gallery. All right, so talk us through this. So this was back in 2018, so 4 years, 3.5 years ago.
So I just started. That's when I first started painting. So kind of stress of the job. I was looking for something to kind of start doing on the side just for fun. And then I had a couple different folks that I knew that were like, hey, we really like your stuff. Will you put it in our gallery? And will you put it in our show? And then these folks contacted me in my hometown. They're like, hey, we want to bring you home, hometown boy. And we'd love to have a gallery show. And so that was really cool. It was
it's all
really
animals.
A special night. At that time, I was just doing animals, and I look at those now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, those were some of my first paintings. I had never been trained on painting. I don't know anything about it. I promise my stuff is better now. But anyway.
So talk to me about acrylics. For people, that have never painted, watercolors, whether there's some sort of medium there. Talk us through what drew you to acrylics.
I think it's just that it's pretty. You're able to be very creative as far as mixing things, and sometimes with oil or with watercolor, there's a lot of the technique that's built into it. And if you don't do the technique and you don't do it by those steps, you'll have problems. And with acrylic, there's a lot more room for you to just do whatever. And that's why it's kind of worked out for me, is that I don't know why you do this or why I would want to do that. I just do it. And I usually take about 20 or 30 minutes on a painting, and I walk away from it and I'm done. And I do not look at them or try to mess with them again, or then it'll just be a disaster. And so that's just...
Are you looking at something, or it's just in your mind?
A lot of times I used to do photography, so I would take pictures that I've taken and then kind of translate those into what I really was thinking of when I saw the thing in real life. Like, oh, the color. I love color. So
yeah, sure.
For me, that's the cool part, is getting to kind of add that, how I crazily see the world into something else.
And who got you into it?
I think my best friend Danielle, who is actually a television journalist in Colorado, she bought me a little art kit for my birthday, and I was like, oh, okay, this looks like fun. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I get off work and I just go to my little man cave and start painting. And then I had some random people like, hey, can you paint this dog picture for my husband for a birthday gift? And then I was like, well, I can make a little side money here. The hustle, right? Everybody has a hustle. And so then it started being a little fun, also making a little money here on the side. And it was just a really great, fun thing to do. And I still paint. I have a studio set up now, and I don't do as many commissions now just because I'm busy with everything else with the Airbnb. But I just go up there and paint.
I love to see how people take on different things. Whatever it is in life, you not just reinvent yourself, but you take on a new hobby, or you have an appreciation for something, and or how we fill our time, or how we just deal with getting older, whatever it is. And for me, I got a griddle. A Blackstone griddle about, 3 or 4 Christmases ago. And now all of a sudden, I like to cook.
That's so cool.
And I get more comfortable and more confident with things. And I might even want to, just for fun, I want to do a food truck. I'll do smash burgers, Philly cheesesteaks. I like backyard food. There's other things I'd like to do too. I like to
do
make
a smoker?
I have a smoker, a grill, and a griddle.
Why aren't we having dinner now? I mean, come on, it's 6 almost.
And it's funny. I've been watching this thing on YouTube. It's called Travel Thirsty, and they don't talk. They just film people in a commercial setting. Let's say it's Jim's cheesesteaks in Philly, and they just film them preparing the food, cooking the food, kind of serving it up. No one speaks. They're just
no voiceover.
There's no voiceover, and I'm fascinated at just different ways to do things. And you get to a point, no one's paid me for it, but you get to a point where I've gotten enough compliments, like, you're really good at this. I'm like,
you should
well, thanks. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I could probably make some money on a Saturday. And it's really not hard to make a smash burger. But, I mean, you got to do it the right way. You got to have the right equipment, or a Philly's cheesesteak, or what, like proper, like steak, onion, cheese whiz, and the bread. That's it. Not doing peppers.
No peppers.
Well, maybe I will for people if I want to sell them. But
come on,
But anyways, but
No
now,
vegan
like,
options.
I'll sit there and just watch cooking shows on YouTube. Sam, the cooking guy, is my guy in San Diego. He owns a restaurant called Not Taco, and then he has his channel. And there's so many things you can watch, but for some reason, I'm just like, kind of like drawn to him.
And then the algorithm reinforce it, so then you start getting it served up to you, and before long, you're in deep.
So the same thing with painting, right? Do you sit there on YouTube and look for new ideas, or?
I just like, I'll be on Instagram and I'll be scrolling through and I'll see a bird picture or something. And I'm like, oh,
And do that.
I should paint that picture. So I'll message the person and be like, hey, do you mind if I paint this? And 9 times out of 10, there's like, yeah, we don't care. You're kind of weird. Why would you even ask? Just do it. It's a bluebird. Like, why do you? And I'll be like, I'm gonna paint this, and it becomes almost like an obsession. So now I go yard sailing, and I've used to just buy the canvases. You'd go buy the canvases, but now I'm into this whole like find old pictures and old canvases for 50 cents that are already framed or whatever, or different mediums. Like I've been painting on glass lately. Just because it's more of the challenge of like, oh, I can make this thing. No one will ever know. They're never going to know that this is an old picture that was some old picture at a house that is now a piece of my art. And if you peel back the paint, it's still there. It's the old scene from 1970 or whatever.
That's cool.
So it's really fun. And it's like a challenge to go out and find it. Or I build in the challenge of being on the list of like Michael's or Hobby Lobby and finding out when the buy one, get one free is going to be on this kind of paint. So then I'll be like, yeah, look at me. Like I'm working the system to like get all the supplies I need. And it's all about the planning. And then you get in and you get to do the painting and the marketing and all the other stuff that goes with it. Is fun. It's a good distraction, like you said.
I love that store at home.
Oh.
Have you ever been there?
I've been in. Those
gosh.
are,
it's crazy.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And just starting it, I don't know how much of the stuff you brought from your old place, but
None. So like that lampshade, I bought it at home. I was like, I need a small lampshade. And then I got that American flag, and I'm like, so then there's just when you do video, like, well, I got to build a set. I got this recording thing from there. Of course, that's my logo, but like, I'm going to try and mix it up a little bit. I got that clock. I actually had the clock in previous episodes. It was on the wall, but just kind of mix things up. But I love that store.
I like the picture there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got that at the Space and Rocket Center.
That's neat.
So I don't know. That's just kind of like,
it's fun. It's an adventure. I don't know if you're a yard sale guy, but I'm a big time yard sale. I'm kind of a weirdo. I like to like see what other people have purchased, how they live. Like you kind of get a look in their garage for a second. You're like, oh, I'm not the only one that has a weird stack of wood that you're never going to actually use that's in the corner, but it's taking up space.
Do you watch like Pawn Stars or like the old Antiques Roadshow?
I love the two guys that go out and people
American Pickers.
The Pickers. I like the picker ones.
They had a falling out, those two guys.
I don't know. I watched the old episodes on YouTube. And then there's a couple of these
Storage
other
Wars
weird shorts.
Where they buy the storage unit. Like,
I heard a lot of that was all fake.
Well,
and they like put stuff in there like, oh, here's this cash register that's full of cash.
It sucks when things end up being fake, right? Like, really?
Yeah, but sometimes I just pretend like it's real and I move on and I enjoy it and be in bliss.
Yeah.
But, that's the kind of stuff that you weave into your day and into your week and in your weekend that makes it fun. So going out and cooking or getting together with the neighbors, meeting neighbors, and it allows you to like get into those niche groups of people that are like-minded when it comes to things to do. And you just end up organically meeting those people because you're at the art store and then you meet another artist, or you're out on the trail taking photos, or you're cooking in your backyard and somebody else is barbecuing next door. Well, then you have something in common. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Let's do the quick six. We're going to play a game.
Okay.
And a lot of times I like to do this somewhat as we get towards the end because it might spawn some other questions. I don't know if you've seen the quick six. You don't have to answer quickly. I call it the quick six because it rhymes.
Okay.
But there may be 7 questions this week.
Is this trademarked?
No, I guess I should trademark it. But I call it the quick six.
You better write that down.
I better write it down.
You might see it on WAAY's Facebook page tomorrow. I'm just kidding.
All right, let me switch the screen here. We're going to go to screen 5. There you are. Actually, yeah, you can see it over there.
No, okay. I didn't know something else was going to pop up on the screen I wasn't aware for. So.
I really need to get a production assistant. All right.
Don't we all?
So a couple of these are quick. New York City or Los Angeles?
L.A.
Okay. Uber or Lyft?
Uber.
You have an hour to paint something, even though you just said 20 to 30 minutes. You can knock it out to impress someone, right? So you have an hour to paint something to impress someone with how good you can paint in short amount of time, what is your go-to? If you know you want to impress the person,
Bison.
a bison. How's that? You just had a good look at some bison in
I don't know.
Colorado?
For some reason, I'm just good at the proportions, and they're kind of hard to do.
Man, that's good meat.
And
Had
it's
some
great
bison
to
meat.
eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that, Paul Newman? Or is it? No, who's the guy? Paul Newman. Not
That's
Paul
the
Newman.
dressing. That's the.
Who's the guy
salad
that
dressing.
owns Park City Sundance? And that's not Paul Newman. Anyway, someone has a bison like meat hamburger restaurant.
Oh,
Who is
Ted's.
Ted's. Yeah.
Ted Turner.
Is it Ted Turner?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it
on
is.
CNN.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there.
I've been to one
Ted's
of
is
those.
good.
Yeah.
Bison short ribs.
Yep. Is there a story that you know you would have liked to have been able to cover? Whether that was it, just something on a national scale. It could be in Colorado and Alabama, but you didn't get to cover. But man, I really wish I could have covered that story.
9/11.
Okay. Where were you on 9/11?
Middle school
Oh wow.
in Salida, and I watched it on TV. And even as a kid, I was like, God, I want to be there. Other
So
kids
they-
might have thought, and they're like, I want to be a police officer. My dad was a police officer. Maybe they wanted to be the athlete that was bowing their heads afterwards. I was just watching the news coverage. Like, I wanted to be in that mix.
Did they turn it on at school, or did they dismiss you and you went home?
Turned it on.
Wow. Yeah.
I was in my art class. A 5 foot tall art teacher, Margot Perschbacher, and her daughter was actually in New York studying in college downtown Manhattan. Never been to New York, but that's why I said LA. Anyway, sitting there in her art class in middle school, and she didn't even have her television, one of the old TVs in the room, plugged in. So she was like, somebody go up there. So I was the TV kid, so I went up and I was turning the TV on, and I remember getting it plugged in.
So the first plane had already hit.
Right.
Right,
So this
okay.
was as the second plane was hitting, or a replay of it. I don't
Come
know
look
for
closer.
sure. It seemed live, but I was this close from the screen up on top of the cabinet when it plugged in, and it was just on a channel. And she immediately made a horrible noise and left all of us kids in the class. And we had to go. She left. She was going to try to get to New York.
Oh my gosh. Was her daughter okay?
Her daughter was fine, and she wasn't able to get to New York. Obviously, there were no airplane. But our principal came in and sat with us for that class, and then we were able to just watch coverage throughout the rest of the day in each class as we kind of still kept our schedule. And I just remember thinking the whole time, I want to be there. I want to be covering this, even as a kid.
Yeah.
So
I remember we used to always watch the space shuttle launches. I was in 4th grade when the Challenger blew up, and at that point, I can't remember how many successful shuttles they had sent up, but of course, they never expected that. And it was and I think across America, they would stop everything, bring the televisions in, and we would watch the launch. And that was I still remember how confusing that was.
well, to know there was a teacher there, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there was a teacher.
Kristen McAuliffe. Yeah.
This was a little. I'm only 33, so I must have been really, really little.
When were you
Born
born?
in '88.
You missed it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I think it was 80. It was either 85 or 86 in January.
Okay.
Get that confused. All
But
right, let's go
still.
back to the quick six.
Okay.
One band to see at the Orion, and you would lobby really hard to have them play there.
Elton John.
Oh, that'd be cool. I like how they've done a there's one of his songs, right, that they've changed in the pop music right now. I can't remember when it's coming.
I know what you're talking about. As far as lyrics go.
Yeah, they did a different arrangement. It's really cool.
I
love Elton John. He's the man. I think I want to see Metallica. I guess because I'm wearing the Alabama.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look
Metallica
at you.
shirt.
I mean,
I don't.
I have not been to an actual concert at the Orion. I've
Yeah.
been covering stuff outside of the Orion when they've had concerts, when the
Sure.
first waltz and stuff. But it's on the list. Dave
Yeah.
Matthews would have been fun.
Yeah.
Would have been really cool.
If and when, so let's assume let's assume right now you have a small farm at your Airbnb. When you get the chance to add, let's assume you're going to add back the chickens. That's a given.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next animal that you add to that farm?
Peacocks.
Nice.
I've always wanted a peacock. So far, I've been shot down. I have found the peacock breeder up in Tennessee. I've made contact. I know what's up. I know the pricing. I know how it all works. So far, I've been shot down.
Man, so we moved from Winchester, Virginia, and there was this road, Valley Mill Road, and you come off Route 7, if anybody's from Virginia knows Route 7, it goes from like Alexandria all the way out to the west. And I just basically, every time I moved, I would move off of Route 7, just more northwest of where I was, longer commute. But these people had a farm, and there's this 1-lane bridge in a 2-lane road. You had to go over the 1-lane bridge, and they had peacocks that roamed. And everybody knew, and they had signs like "Beware peacocks,"
as they do.
And they just roam. And sometimes that thing is not in a hurry, and you would stand, and sometimes it's walking across the 1-lane bridge, and you'd have to wait for it. And then sometimes it would go halfway, and then turn around and go back. But you're not going to run over a peacock.
No.
But and everyone, it was just a really cool, charming feature of where we lived, that we lived near the peacock farm.
Well, I will bring you in when I'm advocating once again for the approval from others that live within the peacock loud noise sounding area.
If I can get, my wife and my children are up there right now, I'll see if they can take a picture. Because I can't remember when they're most active, but they'll just let them out of the barn and they just roam.
Yeah, mornings, night,
and it's a lot of cars, but
that's
cool. Really cool, man. First class ticket to anywhere in the world. Where are you going? 2 tickets, 3 tickets, wherever.
Oh,
where are you going?
I know. I think we're going to Australia.
Nice.
Because I've just never been.
You'll love it.
I'd say New Zealand, but if you go to Australia, it's really easy to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So.
Just take a puddle jumper over. That's cool.
Australia, you've been.
I've been to Sydney. I was like on a work trip, but I turned it into
vacation.
I played golf. I went to the beach. I was just talking to Tori about this. Bondi. People will tell you go to Bondi. Manly Beach is where you want to go.
Okay.
And so you take a ferry from the circle from Sydney Harbor. I will tell you, I don't know. The word key down there is spelled Quay. And so when you're totally ignorant to that, and someone will say, "Hey," I'll ask them on the street, "Hey, am I on the way to where the ferries? Oh, you want to go to Circle Key?" I think so. And then you get down there and you see Circle, but then you see Quay, and you're like,
"What?
Is that key?
That
is that how you pronounce key?"
Just go with it. You just get on. You just get on.
But all the ferries leave from right by the Sydney Opera House, and you go out, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I think just seeing the Great Barrier Reef for me is like one of those things. So that would be the.
Yeah, I didn't get to see Melbourne. I got to see Canberra, which is inland, when kangaroos, which that was cool, and then I got to see Sydney.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, that's a great trip. All right, that was a quick 6.
I like the quick. I like it. I think the branding is good too.
All right, I got to get on that.
I like that.
Before someone else tries to steal it.
They will too. There's a lot of competition these days.
So, give me an idea of what the pressure's like. I mean, I guess we've talked about it a little bit. You got a lot going on, but how difficult is it, to go? How do I want to phrase this? I have the most respect for television, anything, as far as like your day. Are you ever on call kind of 24/7? Give me a feel for how that works. I know we talked a little earlier about how you can turn it off, and you've got ways to manage that. But are there circumstances and stories where, hey man, it's your story, and if something happens at 10, 11, midnight, that's your thing?
Well, there's that, and there's the, God forbid you have a shooting or something, shooting or something like that.
But it doesn't just rotate.
I would want to be there. It's my community.
Yeah. Because in radio, right? I mean, radio, not the TV. I mean, I know that there's the programming, right, from 5 to 9 or 9 to 12.
So we have shifts. So
you have shifts, but there are times, right, when you
absolutely.
Okay.
There's times when I'll come in and be on the morning show if something's really, really crazy. Or there's times when I'll stay around for the 10 o'clock because I want to be the one to tell that story. It's mine. Not that I'm that possessive, but if you build that relationship and that trust with a story, it's kind of part of the deal. Even if it's outside of your normal.
And it doesn't necessarily mean any more money or anything like that. It's just
I'm a salaried employee.
Got it.
They take good care of me when it comes to, if I work a 14-hour day on an election, I won't be using a vacation day when I go to New Orleans later on this summer.
Right.
So that is good. But, that's all great. I mean, the daily pressure of journalism, of any type of journalism, I give credit to community journalists working as bloggers, whoever it is, to be able to take and get to the truth is not easy.
Yeah.
Then you talk about technology, right? There's always something going on. And when you're talking about 4, 5, 9, 12 hours of live television every day, no matter what happens tomorrow, there's going to be a morning show at Channel 31. There's going to be a midday, a 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock show. That's that every day, 365, even on Christmas. How do we pull it off?
Yeah.
Every day with technology and with all the other factors. What if your whole newsroom has COVID? That's a reality that TV stations had to deal with, and they still did not miss a newscast.
You know, before he showed up, I got a phone call from a guy. He was a recruiter at Mantech. He told me 10 people in his family died from COVID. Because I hadn't talked to him in 4 years. So it was quite a out of the blue call, and he needed a favor. And I was talking to him, and he was like 10 people in his family. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Whoa. We had a moment there.
So that's the other part of it. So you ask about the management of that and how hard of a job is it. Technology is something you just deal with. The hard part is how do you bounce back from covering the school shooting and talking to the parent of a child that died?
Yeah.
Or watching someone's home burn down in front of them with them live on TV, or someone who's killed in a ski accident, whatever it is. How do you bounce back the next day and go give your all,
right?
Even if you're feeling something, because you can't 100% keep from getting connected to these people that's part of it. If you're not doing it well, get out.
Do you ever, and does it seem like, let's say you're fresh off of that experience, unfortunately, you're into the studio and all of a sudden now you're all smiles. And just, not that person should understand, hey, this is my job, but doesn't mean you're not mourning and not feeling terrible emotions, which just happened, but you also have to switch gears. And
some people are better at it than others.
Yeah.
I never got into television because I was like wanting to be a star or wanting to be, the on TV part was cool, but for me, it was the ability to like reach a lot of people and tell a story to a lot of people.
Do you do a lot of writing?
I do. I write and I read every day.
Did you underestimate that? Kind of when you were growing up, you might have thought, I'm going to be on TV and I'm going to do some reporting, and that's cool. And then at some point you realize, actually in journalism, you got to do a lot of writing.
So the nice part for me and the way that I explain it is I'm a terrible speller.
Okay.
I sometimes have problems like, how some people have like those expressions like I'm going to go rub elbows.
Yeah.
I'll say I'm going to go rub shoulders because I have problems with those kind of some of the things with language. But luckily for me, on television, I am able to be a bad speller because I'm just having to read it myself. Now, social media, website, AP style, when I worked at newspaper, you have to work extra hard on those things.
Well, there's an art form too, and how do you have to be concise.
Right.
It's anybody can write a novel and just type, just probably type it, in chapter after chapter, but to tell a story in 2 minutes.
I do it in
1:15
is the is the attention span that we're dealing with. And I'm writing for audiences where not everyone went to college. When you're talking about some NASA experiment, how do you convince, how do you hit everyone and make everyone understand what you're trying to say and make it interesting?
Yeah.
And people that can connect to it and all the things to be a good communicator. That is the challenge. And then some people do it and do it well and others don't. And those people that do it well, usually people flock to and follow and appreciate that.
So even though you had a tremendous passion to do this, was there something that you really did have to learn when you did get into kind of a formal setting and you're going through your degree program or even maybe cutting your teeth on the job training? Is there a certain element where
slow down?
Just slow down.
That's been my biggest, and it continues to be my biggest challenge in this profession, is that we're going so fast, and I'm wired to go so fast, and I'm already thinking about 4 other things after I'm done here that I need to do tonight before I'm done, but I have to remind myself to be present, be in the moment. So like even sitting here talking to you, I'm listening, but sometimes it comes across as though I'm not. And so that has been the hardest part, is like put it all aside and just 100% be in the moment. And so that's something I'm constantly working on.
So is that feedback you get when they kind of evaluate your on-screen performance and kind of, hey, so what's going on here, Matt? What's going on in your mind right now?
No, I don't know if it's necessarily like we have consultants, so we have people that come in and watch, and they'll maybe point out things. Maybe I say to fill a space. So those things I know about, but for me, the more beyond just work is who I am as a person, and that self-discovery of I think I'm a good listener, and that's what I do all day. I'm literally paid to be a good listener. I better be a really good listener.
Yeah.
Not just be able to talk. So here I am on a talking for 90 minutes with you.
Any final thoughts?
No, I just think that this is really great. I circle back to how fortunate, and I know everybody that I've at least seen that has been on the show has said the same thing. It's like how fortunate that pathways and connections and jobs and whatever it is that lands you here for whatever reason, even if it's only a couple of years or you end up coming back and living forever. I want to raise my family here. Mm-hmm. How serendipitous, how amazing is it that everyone, it just happens. And then those connections are there, and then you just have a really good life, because there's a lot of people living life. They're living their lives across the country and wherever it is they're at, and they're not having a good life.
Right.
They're just existing.
Right.
And here we are living in a place where a lot of people don't think is a good place to live because they don't know it. They don't know anything. They just see something maybe on the internet and the stereotype of Alabama. What are they missing?
I used to work in a large office environment, and it was a huge pet peeve of mine to hear someone kind of on Monday, right? It's Monday again. I can't wait till Friday. Like, you'd hear the same phrases. You got any plans this weekend? Like, it's Tuesday. Can you enjoy your job? Right. Can you enjoy Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? Like, they were just dragging themselves through life and through their career. And I kind of thought, I don't want to be like that.
Right.
I can go do something else, or I can enjoy this and be positive. Right. And that was just the biggest pet peeve. Like, you just hear the same rote, and people don't even mean it. They'll look at you like, hey, you got any big plans? And they really don't even know.
And they don't even recognize.
Your name's Matt. They don't even know what they've said.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they've said.
It's almost like people get on autopilot.
Yeah. And so I feel like a rejuvenation of life here. And I've told people, like, I am the type of person I could live in Jacksonville, I could live in Columbus, Ohio, and I would call it home. But man, there's something special about Huntsville. There is. And it's hard to like necessarily quantify or expound and explain that to someone, but there is something just so special about this place.
A lot of people, before we have to be done, will say that we're part of the problem.
Sure. The growth.
Even though we're the ones coming in here and thinking it's so great, and there's been a lot of people that have had a part to play in making it what it is. But how do you handle that when you encounter someone that's like, well, you can just take your, whatever Colorado ideas about that and head on back, get back home. Not that I've had anyone say that to me.
Yeah.
But it can weave its way into the conversation. You're not from here.
Yeah.
How do you keep from changing that or not changing it? Or how do I
deal with how I respond to that?
Do not be the new guy. You just do this. You're doing more for talking about our community than people that have lived here their whole lives.
It'd be interesting. If you asked me that question 25 years ago, I would have taken it very personal and have been very affected by that comment. Now we live in a world where people can write the nicest thing on Facebook and get slaughtered, right? You'll read something, oh, it was really nice, and you start looking at the comments like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, everyone has an issue with everything.
I'm very shocked by that.
They're just unhappy. People are just and it's sad where you're like, hey, how can I help you to change your disposition and be more positive? Because you're clearly unhappy. And I've also say I've lived in other towns where it's the same thing, where the new people, they're anti-growth, but at the same time, they do like to take our tax money because it helps them make improvements, like make different signs and all that. So like it's right. A catch-22, or it goes both ways.
So Colorado was Texas visiting and California moving there. Everyone's like, California, ruining Colorado. So here we are.
Hey, Matt, it's been a pleasure.
I really appreciate you reaching out.
No worries, man.
And social media. Look, we met through social media.
Yeah,
which is just what it's all about.
That's where the internet is good. and everything related to that, right? Connecting people.
I wish you a lot of success here, and anything I can do to help would be, I'd be happy to do it. I think that this is what it's all about. It's
Awesome.
for each of us to look at our community and say, okay, what's missing? What can I do?
Well, and I was going to bring this up, but we touched on it a little bit where I love local news because it's supposed to be objective. It's supposed to just give me the news, right? And I'll actually, so Channel 4 up in DC, WRC, that kind of grew up on Channel 4, and I was like you. There's in fact, unfortunately, some of them died from cancer. Jim Vance, Dorian Gensler. Like, man, I grew up with these newscasters, George Michael, the weatherman. My friend from high school, Doug Kammer, is the chief meteorologist. He started his career in Florida, went to Philly, and then he ends up in D.C., and he's probably the most famous guy that ever went to Herndon High School because he's the chief meteorologist at Channel 4. Good dude, good baseball player, good basketball player. But there's so much, everyone wants I think with the podcast, like my thing is showcasing all that's good in Huntsville. Most people I don't know if they want good stuff, right? And that's kind of a little bit frustrating. I wonder if the news is the same way where it has to be salacious, right? Or I have to take some slant on something to create interest or have a buzz clip that goes viral versus I don't want that. I just enjoy meeting people and talking and getting to know more about Matt, and then how can Matt and I be friends and, as we sojourn here in Huntsville together.
If you can solve that question, I bet every media executive in the whole country would be calling you.
Yeah.
It isn't an easy answer.
No.
It's not easy to give people what they want when sometimes the data shows you that it's actually the blood and guts. When the stories about the amazing teacher that transformed her student's life don't do well.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they don't get clicks on the website or they don't get social media, but the guy that got shot at the gas station down the street blows up the website. I don't know what to make of that. Yeah. All I can do is honestly and truly come in and say, okay, how do I every day try to make a difference in my community using the amazing gift that I'm given, which is a microphone and the ability to tell stories on TV. That's all.
Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Matt Kroschel, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, man. Until next time.